From the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between. This is the 50/50 podcast, powered by National Scouting Report. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game. Here we go. It's another edition of the 50/50 podcast, episode 110 of the podcast. I am your host, Coach Hector Cano, and I am proud to introduce my next guest. He is the assistant women's soccer coach of Baylor University Women's Soccer. He is Cole Ouren. Coach, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Oh, doing great, man. I'm excited to have you here. I'm going to tell a little bit our interesting journey, right? Kind of how our paths crossed, and we didn't even kind of realize it a little bit. But excited to have you here. Tell us how are things?
Good, really good. We're have our first spring game coming up this Saturday, so just super excited to officially kind of get out of the just training phase and actually kind of see where we're at and have that kind of barometer, so to speak. So it's doing really well there. Our kids, and keeping my wife and I on our toes.
Yeah.
So really can't complain.
Yeah. How do you feel when you assess because obviously they're very different, your fall from your spring season, but when you get to that point, right, where you can kind of get the sense that your team, they're tired of playing against each other, they're tired of scrimmaging against each other, and you get the sense that they're ready to see somebody else. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like that's kind of ratcheted up more in the fall or in the spring?
I think a little bit of both. I think, obviously in the fall, like there's more weight to each game, and sort of also the preseason is so short. So I really feel like it happens so much more in the spring, where you only can scrimmage and play against each other for so long before it just kind of gets a little monotonous, a little bit old, and you're just hungry for a different type of competition. So we've done a really good job trying to balance out the schedule. We have some male practice players that come out, so that kind of helps break it up a little bit. But even then, it's just they're thirsty and hungry for something more competitive with a little bit more weight. And I think even just to kind of self-assess themselves individually and as a team, okay, like where are we really at before they can kind of take that next step in their development.
Yeah. And, in the unique piece, obviously we mentioned our unique connection in terms of our coaching paths, and they crossed in Colorado Springs when I was at the Air Force Academy. Through when I wasn't there, I was also, in addition to coaching at the academy, I was also working with Pride Soccer Club, which you were also involved with, but I didn't realize it was for 9 years, right? So that's pretty cool. And some pretty amazing coaches have come through the ranks there, right? And we mentioned Sean Hudson, who's killing it at LSU as well.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to, I see her, just to name a few, and just some of the other great coaches that were there. And I was blessed to, learn from, one of my mentors, and Gary Evans there as well, who was a tremendous coach as well. So, what did you feel? Was that like your very first big stint there in terms of helping develop you as a coach, going all the way back to those Pride days?
I feel like in each phase I've been, like there's always been like massive growth of development. I had an opportunity basically right after graduation to step in and be an assistant coach at a small Christian college. And through that was able to find mentorship just kind of through some other people. There's a coach in Oklahoma, Jimmy Hampton, who is really what I kind of deem as like my first true soccer mentor. And he had just a massive impact in shaping my coaching journey. But from Pride, the nice thing there was, as you know, in any club environment, you're working with so many different coaches and personalities. While there's a club structure, we all are going to see things just slightly different. And so I think from that standpoint, it just allowed me to be on the field almost 24/7 and kind of shape
Mhm.
it that way, but having the opportunity to interact with so many different high level quality coaches really kind of help shape and spur other parts that were maybe lacking,
Yeah.
where I was just a little bit young in.
Right. Yeah, I find myself pretty often telling the story of one spring day when I was covering a couple of coaches. I was coaching four games in a spring
Mm,
season there in Colorado, and, I found myself wearing 4 different
yep.
outfits over the course of
Yep.
you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the spring. Going from long sleeve shorts halfway through the day, I'm in a stadium, training pants, I
Yep.
have a beanie on, gloves on, and by the end of the day, I'm back in a long sleeve and
Yep.
training pants, right? So that's Colorado, and oftentimes where we find ourselves now, Texas. I tell people all the time that Colorado and Texas are the only two places I've been where I've had to use both the heater and the AC in my car
Yep.
in the same day, in the same
100%. 100%.
um, but so we talk about your coaching journey. You hit on it a little bit, and your ascendancy to Baylor, right? I know you had two stints at Central Christian,
Mhm.
NAIA. Then you end up also a D2 along the way at UCCS
Mhm.
along with at the time where Sean Hudson was there as well, making that run all the way to the very top of the sport there at the D2 level, and then you end up here at Baylor. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about how how that journey has played out, from how much of it did you really see coming? How much of it did it just kind of along the way, mentorship, guidance? How did that play out?
Yeah. I think as coaches, we're all ambitious, hungry, but I think the older you get, you just continue to try to find like what is my niche,
Mhm,
where can we have the most impact, and what obviously like suits our strengths. So early on, like any other coach, I always had an ambition. I want to coach at the highest level possible, whatever that is. Um, but while it was always, dreams and aspirations, it was really just kind of letting go and just kind of serving where my feet are at and making the
mhm,
most of that impact there. And just,
right, right,
I'm a self learner. So it's just always just more of where am I at? How can I learn? How can I be the best that I can be there? And not being naive to the fact of there's always something I can learn. There's always something we can steal. So kind of from that, just kind of continue to try to put myself in situations to grow, to be better, and to be around people that are willing to call me out and say, "Hey, like this is a really good session. Here's ways to tweak it," or "Hey, like this was really poor, and here's how to make it better." And so I think just being very open minded and putting myself in those situations to just learn and grow connects you with people. As we know, like the
mhm,
soccer community is pretty small, but I
yeah,
just think through wanting to learn connects you with people, and then just again, the community's small, so it just kind of slowly transcends itself, um, and shaping and forming that journey.
yeah,
But obviously in Colorado, working with Sean at UCCS is really just a way to work with one of my closest friends, someone that I have the utmost respect for, both as a person and obviously on the field. And then, when she left, it just sucked, to kind of be honest. You're losing a friend and just
right,
a colleague and a mentor and stuff like that. And so my wife and I moved to Kansas, kind of getting closer back to her side, the family and stuff like
mhm,
that, thinking we'd be there for longer than what we were. Didn't think it'd
mhm,
be a year and a half that we'd be there before taking this stand and even getting to Baylor. It's still a dream. Like I still pinch myself every morning trying to figure out how we got here. Um, but it's just again just being that self learner, putting yourself in situations to grow and connecting with the right people is what's kind of helped
mhm,
get me to Baylor now.
yeah. Yeah. So talk to us about Baylor, right? In your mind's eye, in terms of what you envisioned of what D1 would look like, what it would maybe look like day to day, what it would feel like, right? Versus the reality, right? how different
Mm.
are those in terms of maybe these kind of these expectations for no reason that you might have internally had, and then now what you're living day to day? How close or how far apart are they?
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough question. I really don't know, because I tell people, at Pride, the last little bit we were there, we always had like a U23 summer league team and stuff like that. But the last little bit we joined the WPSL. Sean Hudson ran that along with Christy Bronston, and really brought in high level players. Chloe Lagarzo is a player to kind of name drop who played for the
Mhm.
Australian national team. And so we had players like that. So it was already like, oh, I was fortunate enough to be around a high level of
Mhm.
players, a high level of coaches and the demands and expectations. And then obviously working with Sean at UCCS, we had great success, but she just demands a lot. So I can't say I was really too far off in
Mhm.
terms of um, thoughts, assumptions, expectations. I feel like it was pretty aligned. The other side of it is Michelle has had a phenomenal career at DBU,
Right.
has high bar of expectations there. And so getting to know of Michelle, and just obviously no one can have that amount of success without having expectations. So stepping into that, I feel like it was just leaving kind of stepping from Sean and Pride and that experience right into it, just with a different voice, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
So all that to say, kind of a you were well prepared in a seamless transition, essentially, right?
as much as anyone can be. I mean,
Right.
there's always going to be some things that kind of throw you for a little bit of a loop, but for the most
Mhm.
part, I felt relatively prepared, as much as
Yeah.
you can.
Right. Now talk to us a little bit about your coaching staff there at Baylor, because it's a pretty good one, pretty strong one,
Yeah,
and it's a pretty big one too. Look at
yeah,
the number of coaches you guys have on staff. What is that like day to day? Because I know sometimes high school coaches, other college coaches, they kind of wonder what staffs are like, and just the day to day in terms of the operations, the flow, your role. How does it all kind of come together?
yeah. No, I'm lucky, very fortunate to work with not just a phenomenal group of coaches who are tactically astute, know the game, but are also very hungry to continue to learn, but are just really, really good people,
Mhm.
phenomenal people, people that I'm proud to call friends, not just coworkers. We kind of check in and check out. Um, the how it works in terms of roles and stuff like that, it really is just you're kind of going to work with a group of friends, and we're all just kind of tag teaming. So we do have some things that are a little bit more separated, or just more coach
Defined.
specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, defined. But for the most part, it's really kind of Michelle does a really good job of all hands on deck, kind of seeking everybody's input, and receiving that input,
Mhm.
and then kind of through that divvying things out. So maybe, this was something that I was kind of doing for the last month or 2 weeks, but because it shifted a little bit, this is going to suit, Leah or Cam's strengths a little bit more there. Um, but Leah is our recruiting coordinator. So she kind of helps oversee that piece of it. We all kind of have a piece in the recruiting process, obviously. I do a little bit more of the video analyst stuff, a lot of the IDP.
Mhm.
So just the individual development plans for our players, and stuff like that. But even then, it's weird. I don't ever feel comfortable saying that anything is super defined, because all of our responsibilities kind of cross over, so to speak.
Yeah, awesome. Great stuff. The From that perspective too, what has the experience been like now being in Texas? Live the kind of from the recruiting angle of just the athlete that you see, and just on the club side. I know you're more involved on the club side.
Mhm.
What How has that maybe changed or looked different from what you're used to in the past, maybe?
Yeah. I think each region kind of has its own culture and makeup. And then obviously each state is going to do that. Texas It's obviously one of the best soccer states that there is. I mean, you got the Dallas hub in there, but then you go just for us, you travel an hour and a half, you're in Dallas, an hour, you're in Austin, but then you got San Antonio and Houston just right there. And within each one, like there's just a little bit of a different market, a little bit of a different makeup. And but within that, it's just very competitive. It's very high level. It's one of the reasons why, specifically on the club side, the Texas ECNL Conference is consistently one of the best, if not the best, within the ECNL platform, showing itself on a national stage for playoffs and everything there.
Yeah. Great. So we start to segue here, Coach, a little bit. Tell us, we look back, right? Because we're going to talk a little bit more about the spring, but we look back to the 2023 fall season. Obviously you've been well removed from it. You've had plenty of time to reflect, have exit interviews and what have you, feedback, everything. From your perspective, you look back on it, how did 2023 play out?
Yeah. Looking back, there's a few games that we wish we would have kind of taken back. A few games that we felt like we dropped and we shouldn't have. But as a whole, it definitely was a success. Is a success. If I could put like a word attached to it, it would just be growth. It's our second full year there. But just a ton of growth. I think we had like the most wins since like 1999 or something like that. We doubled our wins from our first year there, doubled the amount of goals scored. So record wise, there's definitely growth. Statistically, it would show you that we improved, doubling our numbers in so many different categories. But I think even just within anytime there's a coaching transition, there's a cultural change. And so really just establishing more of the culture, expectations, even the locker room and things like that. It was, excuse me.
Yeah.
It was fun, but just growth was the biggest thing there.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, when you look ahead, right, you're getting ready to play. So Saturday, launch your spring season, which is obviously condensed and very different.
Yeah.
Much smaller scale, obviously, compared to the fall season. What has you start looking to it? What maybe has you a little bit, what are you looking forward to immediately this spring? Because as most people know by now, right, the spring season is very different. It's from the development piece, trying to figure out what you currently have, right, that's going to launch you into fall. But what maybe from your perspective, maybe your role within the coaching staff, what maybe is something that you're kind of keying in on specifically this spring?
Yeah. So like part of my role is just kind of the IDP. So just the individual development plan, and that looks different for each player within each position and things like that. But just really excited to see some of really our younger players kind of step in. They had the freshman years, the fall season, so they step in, have basically 2 weeks to digest as much information, and then you're running. And then there's really not a lot of breaks, if any, during the fall season. So now they have had that kind of under their belt. They've had a slower start to the spring, kind of implementing themselves a little bit more into the game model, being able to focus on just certain individual attributes for them to continue to improve on, because there's already a strength there. Hey, this is an area of improvement that we talked about at the end of the fall.
Yeah.
And really just seeing how being able to kind of judge where are they at, where have they come from, where are they at, and here's the steps on how to continue to grow. And then I think the other standpoint of that is last year we were very young. And so we have this sophomore class specifically that got a lot of playing time their freshman year, a lot of playing time the sophomore year. So now as we prepare for their junior year, stepping into a more of a leadership role, how do they start to step into that now during the spring, even though it's not the fall?
Yeah. So beyond the spring, right? Come next fall, right? The fall of 2024. What is something that you all are working towards? You'll be in your third season at that point. What is something that maybe you personally has you most excited going forward into that fall season?
Man, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's, you know, I want to just go back to just how do we continue to progress? We got some really talented players that with each season we've had from with them, so from the fall to the spring, stuff like that, there's just continued growth. And you just see more and more of their ability and more of their personality come out as well. So I think I'm just really excited to see how do certain players step up. I mean, as
Mhm.
graduating players leave or just more demands are placed upon them. But now, obviously, just how does our game model continue to layer itself in
Yeah.
as well? I think is what I'm really most excited for
Yeah.
next year.
Awesome. So, we kind of start to look big picture now here, coach, right? So well beyond obviously just Baylor, but maybe on the macro level for college soccer, but so many changes have taken place. We've talked about it in plenty of episodes where so many changes in about the last 6 years, right? 6 years or so. So many changes have taken place in college athletics, right? From the transfer portal, right? We talked about the transfer portal, and then the NLI or NIL, I should say, and then I keep always mixing those up. NIL, and then as well as and then the post pandemic, right? The super senior, all that. So we
Mhm.
saw probably more changes in the last five,
Yeah.
6 years in college athletics and college soccer than the previous 100 total in college athletics. So but what we don't necessarily talk about as much though is from your perspective, how has in the college game, how has recruiting changed?
Hmm. Um, it's interesting. I think, obviously the NIL, I think it's slowly starting to have an impact. I think on women's soccer, it hasn't a whole lot yet, as it
Mhm,
has with your marquee sports like basketball and football.
mhm,
But I do kind of see it starting to kind of trend in that direction. But I think what I've really been interested in seeing is how schools are kind of reverting back to just older models, being old school mail, or sending stuff in the snail mail, the admissions pamphlets, and handwritten letters or things like that. You see the players posting this stuff on Twitter and social media and things like that. So it's just been a really interesting trend. As everything kind of always comes back to full circle, but how
yeah,
we're starting to kind of that piece of it, and just I think within that, because of the pandemic and things like that, people are wanting they're really wanting seeking that connection, that relationship, which I think has always kind of been there. It's just because of the pandemic, it's been more on the forefront for players and really what they're seeking. And this is just a way coaches are trying to build that connection earlier, when it used to be so much of how can you build a social media platform and a brand, and that stuff is still very much prevalent. But the snail mail has been a really interesting trend.
yeah, yeah. So so this is just Cole Oren speaking here, but you look into your crystal ball, right? 5 years
Yeah.
from now, right? five
Mm.
years from now, what do you think that looks like?
Um, I, I don't know. There's so many different rumors circulating
Yeah,
of what could be and whatnot. Um, so I don't know. I really honestly feel like that's an impossible question to ask without just going into a whole bunch of conspiracy theories.
yeah,
Like I said, I think NIL will become a little bit more prevalent, but I think that I don't think we're done with conference realignments, or does football go on their own? And if that happens, how does that impact, non-revenue sports and things like that? So, yeah, without jumping on like conspiracy theorists,
right.
I don't even want to try to put my foot in my mouth.
I got a tin hat here that I can put on my head, man. I mean, so just let me know. We can have one of those sessions. But no, I hear you. I hear it's kind of one of those of sometimes just kind of a hey, your kind of humble opinion, or you try to connect the dots, or you trying to kind of you have enough conversations and you just kind of start to wonder, it's like what's valid and what's just let's
Yeah.
put something on the wall, see what sticks.
No, I think right now we're I don't want to say even at a day and age, because I think it's always kind of been there to a certain extent within college athletics, but you're really just living day by day. And,
Mhm.
especially with the name, image, and likeness, and just even rules and things like that, it feels like it's on shifting sand a little bit at times.
Yeah.
So you just try to take, here's what it is today, and not run with it, but try to prepare and equip yourself in case something does stick. So that way you're really not just caught, on your heels or behind in a certain trend.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, so beyond recruiting, right? We look at just the game, right? What is your assessment in terms of the state of the college game, specifically the women's game, but
Yeah.
the college game? Um, what's your thoughts on just the state of the game right now?
Yeah. Man, I think it's exciting. I mean, honestly, I think it's the game as a whole is just continuing to shift in a positive direction. And I think specifically on the women's side, it's really exciting because for so long, the women's side was just relied so much upon athleticism. And obviously, athleticism will always have validity and hold its own weight. But I
Hmm.
feel like the women's side, for women's soccer specifically on the collegiate side, like that's what it was predominantly known as or for, was just who's athletic, who's fast, who's strong.
Yeah.
And it's really becoming more an attractive brand in terms of just more of a possession based. Players are more technical, more skillful. That they're willing to take people on, and just the types of distribution, the textures on balls, and things like that. It's just that is continuing to be taught at such a younger age, and just players are stepping in with that much more confidence, and even just becoming more tactically aware. And because of that, that's just changing the game on the women's side globally, which is having a direct impact for us collegiately. And I think you're
Hmm.
seeing that. I think within the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a really big trend in that, especially your top 15, 25 teams that are there consistently have a more of a possession brand type of soccer. And I think you're continuing to see that trend. So I think it's a really exciting time, and just the potential and the possibilities is endless.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I won't ask you another conspiracy theory question, right? But we'll
Yeah.
go, we'll go in a little different direction here. But in terms of the the future of the game, right? Where would you like to personally maybe see it headed in, I don't know, whatever time frame it'd be, whether it be 5, 10 years from now, whatever. Where would you what would you like college soccer to look like down the road?
Hmm. Um, it'd be that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Um, I think in a perfect world, it'd be nice if it was more like in an equivalency sport where just everyone is on the same amount of scholarships and things like that, and it's something that can just kind of be taken away. Um, is so I think that would be um, good. I think it would be a positive direction for college soccer, possibly, and just kind of even leveling out that playing field, so to speak, a little bit. But I don't know, man. That's one I don't want to sit on and like chew on for a little bit. That's a hard one just
Yeah.
to kind of shoot straight from the hip.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We ask those tough ones here, Coach. We don't.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Little thought provoking, but hey, those we know that coaches at Baylor can handle those though. That's why we asked them, right? No, but hey, no, you did great, Coach. Thank you. Because I know they're thought provoking. They're also kind of one of those that kind of get the wheels turning. So absolutely, no,
Yeah.
appreciate your candor. And so that's going to do it for our first for our building out of the back segment, Coach. Before we transition here, let us tell you about our good friends at Gipper. So Gipper is the way that schools, athletic departments, ads, and coaches create world-class marketing content. Join over 4,000 coaches, ads, sids, and club directors that use Gipper to create high-quality visual branded graphics for your program. The best part, anyone can do it in seconds without needing any design experience whatsoever. If you do have design experience or significant design experience, this is designed specifically for you, as well as you are what they consider the power user, and it just gives you so an infinite number of options as well. So, and just for being a listener of the 50/50 podcast, a supporter of the 50/50 podcast, Listeners can receive, I should say, 10% off any first-time Gipper purchase. Simply visit gipper.com/partner/5050 to learn more. Again, that's gipper.com/partner/5050. And our other good friends at Global Scarves, both Kyle and Bill. Global Scarves is the top provider of custom knitted scarves, beanies, and other fan merchandise. Yes, they're called Global Scarves, but they do phenomenal. The beanies are top notch. Blankets are pretty incredible. But all their merch is fully custom with free design services and free shipping on all orders. You can contact them at info@globalscarves.com. Excuse me, to get any free designs or quotes built out for your school, club. Maybe you want to do it for a supporters group. All right. But again, that is info@globalscarves.com. Both Kyle and Bill, they'll be sure to take care of you. Simply mention the podcast or use the code #5050pod, and they'll be sure to take care of you. So, all right, Coach, the time has come. Counterattack segment where we get to kind of throw all kinds of random things at you. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, all right, first one. Any hidden talent, secret talent?
Man, I wish I did. My lifelong goal is to learn how to play the banjo. I haven't even started
Nice.
yet, so no hidden talent just quite yet. Besides sarcasm, if that's one.
Oh man, that's my I think that is my native tongue there. Yeah, I'm with you.
Absolutely.
All right, and a shout out to Ken Murphy Photography. Big, I know he mentioned big supporter of Paisley Mabra. I know someone who you're very familiar with there, Coach. Great photographer as well, Ken Murphy, out of the DFW area. And when you were talking about just the development of players, this is exactly who came to mind. He mentions Kennedy Fuller here, who just just started as a freshly newly 17-year-old for Angel City. Pretty phenomenal stuff. Yeah, she did great. All right, next one. Day person or night owl?
I'd say both. I stay up late and I wake up early. It's a bad habit. But yeah, I would say both.
Yeah, I'm kind of uniquely, I would not say I'm a day person. I'm an early riser, right? I always tell people that. So I think that's all the years of military life, military training too. So, okay, next one. You had to lose one. Lose your wallet or lose your phone. Which one are you going with?
Well, the fact that you can have everything on your phone now, so I guess I'd lose my wallet. You would have asked me that 10 years ago, I'd definitely say my phone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it just speaks to more of where we are in today's age, right?
Yeah.
Pretty amazing stuff.
It's attached to my hip, unfortunately. So I'd be a little lost.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're a college coach. Yeah, no doubt. All right. So Sunday dinner. All right. You got everybody coming over, right? So loved ones everywhere, coaches, friends, special friends that are coming in town to visit you. You're the chef. What are you cooking?
Man, Uncrustables. No, probably try to do something on the grill. Hamburgers are always easy, but you can't go wrong with a good steak, especially living in Texas. It has to have some sort of beef. But if everyone's coming over and there's no budget, we definitely throw some steaks on the grill.
Yeah. Uncrustables. That is definitely a first on the podcast. But yeah, I was gonna say you can't show up with the grill, open up the grill, and they're not gonna let you get away with just hamburgers, right? You're gonna have to definitely throw on some steaks in Texas for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so we'll stick with the food theme here, maybe. All right, strangest thing in your refrigerator right now.
Man, I don't know. Probably, I'm sure my wife has some sort of homemade kombucha drink or something in there.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna go with that for right now, but I may be getting in trouble for that answer a little bit later on.
Right. Yeah. You're gonna get the right act later. Yeah. So, all right. Book you currently reading, recently read, or would recommend?
Yeah. So 2 books I just recently got done reading, highly would recommend. One was Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's kind of autobiography, whatever. But one that I'd highly recommend. I'm a Liverpool fan, so obviously it's a bit biased. I have, unfortunately, there we go.
Good man.
Never Walk Alone.
Good man. Good man. But
Unfortunately, I'm surrounded by a lot of Arsenal and Man United fans, so I even recommend it to them, even without the bias.
yeah.
But is Intensity by Pep Lenders,
Mm,
Klopp's right hand man.
yeah.
Just a really good book, just a different soccer book as well. Just the way it was written kind of gives you that inside look. I just found it really, really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Again, even if you take away just the biased opinion
Yeah.
there.
Right. Yeah. I've been eyeing that one for a while. I haven't had a chance to read that one yet. And Green Lights, I think you're might be the second person to mention that on the podcast. So
Yeah.
somebody else told me, or might have been the first same one. I can't remember now, but they were telling me about, I guess, the audiobook version, which is read by Matthew McConaughey, is like
Yep.
that's the way to go. They say just
Yep.
because it's Matthew McConaughey, right? So
Yeah. No,
but yeah, I'm gonna
100%.
have to
I'd
check that
agree.
out. Yeah, awesome. All right, next one. Uh Professional coach you maybe pattern yourself after, or you just you might have just given the answer, but you highly
Yeah.
respect or you really pattern yourself after.
Yeah. It's kind of being that self learner. I feel like I've always tried to take something from everyone. Mourinho's not like the most popular coach in the world, but like
Mhm.
phenomenal coach. He was ahead of his time, especially whenever he's there at Porto and at
Right.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Just finding loopholes and stuff like that. But just him, it's hard not to like Klopp and Pep. Obviously they're on the top end of things. But I think, yeah, I'd have to go with Klopp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just an
You know,
infectious personality.
right, right, yeah. The thing with Klopp, I know I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, is just everywhere he's been, just his what I find fascinating about him is the level of engagement and the just he's endeared by those
Yeah,
communities, right? For at every
yeah,
club, whether it was from Mainz to Dortmund and obviously Liverpool. So yeah, it's gonna be tough to see him go. Gonna
mhm,
be tough to see him go, but yeah, it seems like 70% of people think he'll take a year or two away, and then he'll end up as the the German national team coach. And some people are crossing their fingers, want him to be the U.S. men's national team coach.
yeah,
So yeah, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, and I hear you on Mourinho. Speaking of Mourinho, I don't know. Did you see recent release that Netflix is working on a documentary that
I
on
did.
him for release
Yeah,
next year? Mourinho, Jose has he's always been the coach that I don't know why I'm so fascinated with him. Like
yeah,
I can't get my eyes off of just some of the things he says and
yeah,
does. And he's the kind of it's like, man, I wish I didn't like that guy as much as I do,
yeah,
but I do.
yeah,
And some of what gets lost in what he did was what he did over at Inter Milan as well, right?
yep,
Taking him to the Champions
100%.
League with Inter.
Yep,
So yeah, it's just very he
no,
speaks and I just want to listen. So yeah.
100%. And I think what people forget is just his coaching journey as well. Just being a translator at Barcelona for a long time,
Yeah.
and really didn't have a high successful playing career, but is just
Yeah.
strapped himself up and now he's one of the most successful coaches ever.
Right. Right, right, right. So we got one in here for you, coach. Kind of put you on the spot. A little
Mm.
sent in question. As a recruiter, how much does social media play a role for these young girls? So many girls posting. What are you looking for in those posts? How do these kids get on your radar? It's an interesting one.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of getting on the radar, obviously emails are great. Emails before, showcase events and things like that, but obviously just mixing it up in the emails that are sent with highlight tapes. Obviously, if they're following and liking our social media posts and stuff like that. Um, in terms of what we're looking for and things like that, I think that's going to vary for each coach. I think even a little bit within our own staff, but I think it's what is a little bit of authenticity. How can you see their personality, but because it's behind a screen, you can kind of create more of a brand. So one of the things I look for is just a little bit of authenticity
Mhm.
that shows them more as a person. Obviously, it's great seeing stuff that they do on their own or highlights and things like that. But I think it's something that's nice to see because you don't see that a whole lot. Um, I mean, social media is always going to play a part. You can't get away from it, especially for certain players that, that live out of state and things like that. So it's just a way for us to watch them as they post stuff online, in terms of, highlight tapes or, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's always going to play a part, but for us, we want to be more relational based. And so
Yeah.
it's just how can we actually go and see the players, kind of firsthand, is more important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Great stuff. And thank you again to Ken Murphy for that question. Great question. Current music and podcast playlist, right? So
Man,
we go and pick up, Coach Ouren's phone right now. What's kind of in the what's in the mix there as far as as the tunes go? What do we
yeah.
got in the mix there for podcast list? What do we got?
Yeah, kind of all over the place, man. Music wise, it's literally all over the place, and it can be all over the place in a singular day, going from, you know, 70, 80s rock to, 90s rap or country.
Yeah.
I'm a big 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, but like 80s and 90s music just kind of pulls on my heartstrings, no matter kind of what genre. Um, so I think if you were to pull that up, it would literally be a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends on what the mood is.
Yeah. Okay. What about podcasts? Anything on the podcast side or not really?
The 50/50 podcast
Oh, wow. Look at that.
doesn't
Look at
even get
that.
that doesn't
Good.
get any better than this.
We'll give ourselves one there. Awesome. All right. Yeah. Not that I was teeing you up there. I wasn't trying to throw you a
No.
softball there, but no, any additional other you a podcast guy or not really?
No, yeah, I am. I kind of hit and miss a little bit more on the podcast. I do just a lot of like online books and stuff like that, and that's honestly kind of where that's been in that season,
Mhm.
so to speak. Has just kind of been listening to um, just more like online books or like a previous recording of something of an
Yeah.
interview or something like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Great job. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Now, here's a question for you. Do you find have you picked up any trends on yourself as far as like we'll say music, for example, music playlist on what
Mhm.
you're listening to or what you feel you're in the mood for in season versus out of season? Have you noticed any trends like that?
Yeah, probably. My wife would probably be able to answer that question a lot more than me. But yeah, I definitely say that there's probably some truth to that, especially
Yeah.
just where we're at. The beginning of the season, it's probably a little bit more upbeat, high tempo, energetic. There's probably a part of the season where it's just a little bit slower because we're
Yeah.
just kind of running 100 miles an hour. I'm just looking to try to find a little bit of peace, something to kind of slow me down. And at the end of the year, it's playoffs, so it's just something to kind of get you ramped back up, building that excitement and things like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned, I'm assuming Liverpool is your favorite team, right? Are they your
Mhm.
ultimate favorite? Well, you're
Yeah.
one of all the maybe favorites.
Yep. I'm
What is the
indoctrinating my kids in it. We got a big Liverpool flag.
There you go.
So yeah,
Awesome, awesome. Least favorite, because you can go so many directions with this one, but least
yeah,
favorite soccer
you could. I'd probably say that there's two, and like I said, I'm a Mourinho fan, so it's kind of a little bit contradictory, but I would say probably Arsenal or Chelsea.
team?
I'd probably say one of those two are my least favorite. Chelsea's probably topping that list a little bit more,
Yeah,
even though, like I said, I'm a Mourinho fan.
right, yeah. We've had a run of a lot of Manchester United fans, right, that
Yeah.
have been on the podcast, and the best part is I think there's been probably actually 3 different coaches that when I've asked that question, they've said their favorite and least favorite is probably Manchester United. And I can't stop laughing. I can't it's like
That's fair.
you'll probably only get that answer from Manchester United and Dallas Cowboy fans,
Yeah,
probably,
that's
right?
fair. 100%.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But, wow, interesting. So, all right, VAR, yes or no?
Yeah.
VAR, VAR, whatever we wanna call it.
Yeah, I would say I'm for it. I think it definitely has a place within the game. So yeah, I would say I'm for it.
Yeah, okay. No, any tweaks? You'd keep it as is?
It's I think it as a from a fan and to a coach, I think it's two different answers for me. I think just having a little bit more, it feels like it's kind of can be all over the place, especially as a fan. So probably just a little bit more concrete rules, which I'm sure that it is there. But when
Mhm.
you're watching Liverpool versus Man City, as asking, for some of it, and it comes
Yeah,
back, and
yeah,
but no, really no massive tweaks or anything like that outside of just a biased,
right.
opinion towards Liverpool.
I don't know. None of us knew what to expect, obviously, but and I don't know how much you read up on it, but what were your thoughts on the blue card, right? That they were talking about implementing uh,
Yeah,
at a certain level, in addition to the obviously the yellow and
yeah,
red.
yeah. So I played in Colorado. I played, I think it's like a semi-pro level or something like that out there.
Mhm.
And so that's immediately where my mind went to, was just indoor soccer. For the outdoor game, I am not a fan of it, and just a little bit that I've heard and a little bit that I've read up on it. Um, but I'm also a little bit of a naturalist, so
Mhm.
it feels like we're trending too far in a certain direction. What that direction is, I couldn't tell you either, but it just seems like it's taken away from the heart of the game.
Mhm.
It's just one more rule, one more thing that everyone has to be cognizant for. Um, so initial reaction is no.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Game day superstition as a coach, not as a player. Game day superstitions or rituals.
Honestly, none. I feel like I go through trends. Like I try to find something. Like when you're winning, you try to do a little bit of the same thing, but I know it's not. Um, I'm an Office fan, so I say I'm not superstitious. I'm just stitious.
Yeah.
Um, but no, really no rituals or anything like that. I got a big sweet tooth, so anytime I can sneak in,
Mm,
some candy or ice cream beforehand,
yeah.
I'll do that. But that's more of just feeding an itch more so than a
Right.
ritual or anything.
Yeah, I've had a few coaches tell me along the way over the years they've found Skittles, and
Yeah,
a little bit because they have a sweet tooth, but also they said it keeps them from yelling at the officials. They
yeah,
said, and I love that. I was like, oh, that's kind
yeah.
of brilliant. That's probably
That's fair.
why I go through so much gum in a game, probably. But
Yeah,
yeah, so yeah, interesting. Most recent binge watch, Netflix, Prime Video, Hulu, what have you. Most
yeah.
recent binge watch.
So my wife and I just recently finished, so I think 1883.
Mm,
It's like one of the prequels to
yeah.
Yellowstone.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, what do
Really
you think?
thumbs up. I
Thumbs up?
highly recommend it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's like two prequels. I think it's the one's like 1923 and then 1883 or something like that. So we
Yeah.
just finished the first initial one. Faith Hill, Tim McGraw,
Right.
are in it. But we really enjoyed it. But I'm originally from Oklahoma, so I have
Mhm.
a little bit of that cowboy
Yeah,
in me, so to speak.
yeah, yeah. Now how many episodes was that, by the way? 1883, how many was that?
I think it was like 8 or 10 episodes.
Yeah.
The director, there's not going to be any sequels. The director basically just said he wanted to make like a 10-hour movie,
Mhm.
and that's basically what he did.
Yeah,
So we really enjoyed the storyline, the filming, everything there.
yeah. I saw the first 2 because they're all Taylor Sheridan series, right? Just linked
Yep.
Yellowstone, right? They're, I saw the first 2 episodes of 1883, and then I just for some reason, I just kind of fell off, and so I need
Yeah.
to get back, and that's kind of been part of the reason why I have not watched 1923 because it's
Yeah.
like I gotta finish I finished
Yep.
Yellowstone, but I gotta finish watching this, so, uh,
Yeah.
have you guys dove into 1923 yet or no?
We have. I think we're only like 2, maybe 3 episodes, in
Mhm.
there, but we kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
We didn't want to start 1923 until we finished
yeah.
1883.
Yeah. The one I wanna start right now that I'm committed to at some point, probably as soon as or my season is over, since I'm in season right now, is I don't
Mhm.
know if you've seen Shogun. Have you heard of Shogun on, Hulu? FX?
Just like honestly, within like the last 2 days,
Yeah,
I can't remember if it was my wife or someone else.
yeah,
So I haven't like read a lot about it or seen anything about it, but someone was just telling me about it.
yeah. Yeah, since I was little, I've always had this kind of fascination with, the ancient samurai, and
Yeah.
it's been getting amazing reviews. It's been getting amazing
Awesome.
reviews. So yeah, um,
All
I
right.
definitely
Should.
want to check that out. So yeah, great stuff. All-time favorite series, what would you say?
Uh, um,
Office? Would you say
man,
Office? Would you go Office?
I'd probably go Seinfeld. I'm a big Office fan, but Seinfeld is just it's classic. So I'd probably go with Seinfeld.
Yeah. Okay. Bucket list destination.
Hmm. Um, I can't say like there's one specific place because of soccer. I've really had an opportunity to kind of be at a lot of different places. Um, but I think, yeah, I don't know, man. Somewhere south. I love the heat. I love the warmth.
Hmm.
So somewhere South America, Africa, or something like that.
Nice. Okay. Good deal. All right. Kind of a superpower question here. Mind reader or invisible?
Mind reader for sure.
Mind reader. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the one that always kind of tears me. Like I don't know what direction to go in. So that's why I ask it
yeah,
so much. Yeah.
yeah. It'd be scary. It'd be scary if there's a way I could like turn it off and like really hone it. Then
Yeah.
then mind reader for sure.
Right. Right. Yeah, it could get very scary very quickly. All right, final one, coach. So this one I very much love to ask of college coaches. Um, so Ouren is appointed the soccer czar in America. You oversee all of soccer, everything. First change you would make tomorrow. Agenda
Yeah,
item 1A or 1A, whatever you want to call it. What is it?
yeah. I'd have like one A,
I
so I
know,
can get
I
as
know,
much done under one.
I know.
Um, Probably one of the first things would be take away the pay to play.
Yeah,
Um, if I could get rid of it, if we could get rid of that, um, I think that's what I would do in a heartbeat.
yeah, yeah. I think w- we're so far down that trail. It's trying to figure out how do we turn it right. I think that's the tough one. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with you for sure. So, all right, coach. Well, hey, that's gonna do it. We're done picking on you. So, installing a new little mini segment here where we let you get to ask me one particular question. It can be about anything, whatever you want, but the floor is yours. Throw anything
All
my way,
right.
buddy.
All right.
You gotta be gentle. Gotta be kind.
No, no, for sure. Um, Man, I'm trying to think of one of the hard questions you asked me and throw it back at you.
No, no, you can't
But
do
I'll
that.
be nice. You've been kind to me. So you said you're a Liverpool fan. What
I am.
what first brought you to be a Liverpool fan?
So I'm familiar with their story for obviously many years, right? Just from just their history, right? Their history. I was very familiar with it, and then just for whatever reason, a lot of the people that I kind of interacted with, and because having been and played overseas when I was active duty as well, and a lot of the people I got to meet and interact with that were from Liverpool had a great connection with them, right?
Mhm,
Great connection, and I didn't have a team forever from in the Premier League. Really, my team was always overseas, right? Was always Real Madrid, right? And that's
mhm,
mainly the lineage of my family, right? That's
mhm,
the reason for that. Um, but outside of that, and then of course along the way, really good mentor of mine who I connected with extremely well in Colorado, right? In Gary Evans, of course. I'm sure you. I don't know if you got to meet him or not, but his background, having turned
mhm,
pro, turned pro at the age of 16, having gone through their academy system before ending up over here in the U.S. So all of those things, I kind of, it just seemed like it was somehow destined for me to just
yeah.
be a Liverpool fan. And I found myself always just kind of tracking their results. Cause you know how it is
Mhm,
back in the day,
yep.
like we didn't have all this access to soccer the way we do now, right? On
Yep.
TV. So you had to work at it. And, but yeah, it just always seemed like there was some way, somehow, it just was meant to be in terms of, and, and then, of course, the more I would research the club, and it just, and then, you talk about just the motto, and you never walk alone, their history, the song, everything, and it's just,
Yeah.
and then you talk, and then, of course, what really kind of put it over the top was going to Anfield, and it's like, how can
Yeah.
you not love this place, love this club, love what they're about.
Yeah.
And then you could look right a mile down the road, and there's there's Everton, right, which is that's pretty wild in itself. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's through the years, they kind of, sometimes you just find yourself leaning towards a particular um, a particular club, and
Yeah.
then somewhere along the way, you kind of fall in love with them, good and bad, right? Good and
Yep.
bad. So, and yeah, I think that's kind of really been the story behind that.
Yeah. Love it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Super. How about you? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. Similar in the sense of, growing up, obviously soccer was not as prevalent in terms
Hmm.
of just being on TV, even the internet and things like that. Um, Different, but found myself gravitating towards, Real Madrid. And then basically as the game continued to grow a little bit, just becoming a little bit more of a conversation.
Hmm.
Everyone was just always the main United fan, and I've always kind of been one that wants to just go against the curve and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. So it's just like, man, like everyone's a United fan. Like I don't want to be like everyone else. I want to be
Right.
different.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of subconsciously found myself just tracking Liverpool, following some other players and things like that. And when I was just like, man, I gotta have a little bit more footing as I trying to like rag on some of my friends for being United followers, but like I have no one to like support myself. I just found myself just always tracking and following Liverpool
Hmm.
players, some of their stats, and so I was just like, well, I'll just go with Liverpool then. Most
Yeah.
United fans don't like them, so this is a perfect setup
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And then just through that, like you said, perfectly, it's just you kind of find yourself falling in love with them, and it's just like any other team outside of that is just doesn't seem right.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah. 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 It's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's just, yeah, wouldn't have it any other way. So a little nervous, a little
100%.
scared what it's gonna look like without
Yep.
without Jurgen Klopp, but I
Yeah.
think we'll be okay. So, and I
Yeah.
forget his name again. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I don't know if you saw it. They've, I think, officially signed the new sporting director. Did you see that?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm drawing a complete blank on his name right now. But
No, same. They just rehired him
yeah,
because he was there. Who was initially helped sign Klopp and some of the big
mhm,
transfers
right.
with Mane and Firmino and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So hope that's a big one. So any thoughts on that? On who you would like to see there replace Klopp?
As soon as the word broke out, I have a good friend that's a big Liverpool fan, so he, reached out and was just like, "Hey, have you seen this?" Once I got through just the despair and possible darkness, like that's where my mind went. It was like, who would be next? Like, who would I really want to see? And just Klopp is such a big personality,
Mhm.
where it's kind of I'm sure there's followers out there that I'm going to get blasted in for saying this, but it's like following Sir Alex Ferguson. Like he's just such a big personality, big presence.
Mhm.
As you said, like the community just loves him, and
Yeah,
so it's hard for who's ever going to have to follow him.
right.
And the people that like I maybe would want to see it, like I almost don't want to see it because that first person is going to struggle.
Mhm.
Just following in those footsteps.
Yeah.
Um, but like Brighton's manager, Roberto, I can't even say his last name.
The,
Does
Italian guy, right? Italian guy, I think?
Yeah, does it Beanie or something like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah.
he's one that I feel like is up and coming, and
Mhm.
can maybe step into some of that and some of those shoes.
Yeah.
So I don't know, whoever it is, I hope it's the right fit, and we don't have to wait 30 years before we have a little bit of success again.
Yeah. Yeah, you look at Manchester United and what they've had to go through since, Alex Ferguson
Yeah,
left, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. And let's be honest, most world football owners, right? They aren't the most patient either. So it's kind
yeah,
of hard. You're not given a
yep,
lot of time. So yeah. So great stuff. Great stuff. Awesome. Well, Coach, this has been great. Thank you so much. Really enjoy you. You're not too far removed from being fresh off the pitch yourself. I know you all had
Yeah.
training earlier today when we were talking. So really thank you for making time for us, I should say. And really, really glad you were here, able to join us and able to touch, be able to make contact with you again as well. So, and as we do, as is customary, we normally do our kind of final thoughts, right? Our stoppage time, as we call it, and we give our guest the opportunity to whatever's on their mind as far as it relates to the game, shout outs, thank yous, whatever they want to share. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I mean, first, obviously, thank you for the opportunity just to jump on here and kind of reconnect and just talk soccer for a little bit. So appreciate that. Kind of beyond that, you got to give a shout out to Michelle, Leah, Cam, and Maggie, and Carly, the rest of the staff. And since we've already mentioned her name a few times, Sean, they're at LSU now. So
yeah, awesome, good deal. All right, well, we really appreciate you, Coach. Thank you again. And my final thoughts, really, if you're watching this, you can see it on the bottom there on the ticker. If you're not, if you're hearing this after the fact on the audio portion of the podcast, our next episode will be a joint venture. It's bracketology. Bracketology is coming for the 2024, a different kind of March Madness, as we call it, the 2024 Texas High School Soccer State Playoffs, which officially begin next Monday, March 25th. But before that, we have bracketology coming. So in conjunction with collaboration with, I should say, the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable, we will be going live Saturday-ish. More to come on that. But we're breaking things up a little differently, doing things a little differently this year, how we're going to do it as far as looking at 4A, 5A, and 6A. Really excited about that. So please be on the lookout for that. Love doing it. Again, bracketology for the UAL, Texas High School Soccer State Playoffs, is coming this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. And again, you can find us on all, as far as the audio podcast portion goes, you can find us on all major podcast platforms wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also find us on Twitter X, as I call it, right? As well as on Twitch at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, and as well as on YouTube you can just simply search the 50_50 podcast. And if you go on there, please, whether it's on the podcast portion or YouTube, what have you, please rate us, subscribe, rate us, sign up, ring that bell for notifications when we go live as well. And give us a rating, because it always helps with the algorithms and helps us more, gives us the opportunity to bring on more great guests, such as Coach Ouren today from Baylor. So go on there. If you think we're great, tell us we're great. If you think we stink, tell us you think we stink. But you got to subscribe to tell us that you think we stink, and we'll work on it. Make sure we get better for you guys. So to all our guests, all our listeners, our supporters, again, we continue to say you are the reason why we do it. And very exciting time as we get ready to launch the state tournament next week. And a little excited. It's a little different for me being back on the UIL side, as I'll be a part of it for the first time in 4 years, I think. So being on that side of it with my squad as well, very excited to have my team participate. Grateful for that, and just excited. It's an exciting time. So for Coach Cole Ouren, assistant women's soccer coach, Baylor University, I am Coach Hector Cano. Really appreciate all of you, and you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50/50 podcast, powered by National Scouting Report. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.